Armbruster, and this is my story.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sarah Armbruster, and this is Krew, and this is our story.
I need this baby.
Tell us about this cute little baby you're holding on to, baby Krew.
So Krew was born 5 weeks early by C-section. I was actually going in to TMC for just a routine ultrasound, and they decided to admit me because they saw some things on the ultrasound that didn't look right. I was actually a high-risk pregnancy the entire pregnancy. So he was measuring really small the whole time. They thought he had a short umbilical cord. And come to find out, when I had him during my C-section, the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck twice and his arm once.
My.
So he was really stuck in there. And they got him out safely, and he weighed 3.2 pounds, and he was 17 inches long. And they kind of bring the little baby over to you so you can see him, but then they had to whisk him away to the NICU. There were doctors in the room from the NICU, and the nurses. They actually come to the labor to assess the baby's needs. And they took him down, and they got him all set up in an incubator. He had to be on like a CPAP machine for the first 6 hours or so, which actually isn't very long compared to some of the other newborns. And they hooked him up with all kinds of IVs and everything, and made sure he was okay, checked his lungs, and cleared out his breathing airway and all that. And shortly after my C-section, I got to go visit him, and that's kind of how it all got started.
Oh my gosh. As a mom, and you're being pulled into a C-section, did you have fears?
Well, because of the high risk factor, I knew that it was going to be a C-section, but it was about 2.5 weeks earlier than we had scheduled. So mentally, I had gotten to process the whole C-section thing, but when down came to down and it was go time, it was a little scary, yes. But the staffing at TMC is incredible. Not just the NICU, but my doctor, the midwives, they are incredible. I actually transferred my care to them halfway through my pregnancy because of how amazing they are.
What does that mean when you say you transferred your care to them?
So I started out at a different birthing center. When I initially got pregnant, I was seeing different doctors at El Rio Birthing Center, and they were great, but all my exams were at TMC. So that's how I started to get to know the staff. And of course, with COVID, my doctor saw me over the video, and she would just discuss what the TMC results were. So after several weeks, I never got to really see my doctor. I decided to transfer my care over to TMC because I was already there and establishing relationships with their staff and their doctors. And they just are so excellent. They explain everything to you. They make sure that you don't have any questions, that you don't leave with any fears or concerns. You can email the doctor. They call you back right away. The nurse will call you back. So I just had such a wonderful experience. I wanted to stay with them.
And that is everything, having the confidence of your doctor. Yeah. I know that, Greg, you haven't had a baby come out of your body. You have a little girl, though.
Not yet.
But when sometimes, you'll get some great care, but you might not meet the doctor until the day of the birth.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes a scary moment, because you want to make sure they know everything about you. But knowing that you're already in this facility, they already know you. How about when they take the baby, they show you little baby Krew? I mean, what was that moment like for you? And then just having them rush out.
Well, okay, so we waited to find out what we were having, so we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. And once they had delivered him, my husband was in the room, and he got to stand up and look over the sheet and see what the baby was, and he kind of announced it. And it was really cool because when he said it was a boy, everybody in the room started cheering and clapping. And it was like such an amazing experience. Like they seemed almost more excited than we were to find out what we were having. And they were clapping and cheering and laughing and excited, sharing our excitement. And I actually did get a little emotional at that moment because it was so exciting just to see the baby, you know, and find out that it was a boy, and which is what we were kind of hoping for. And I got emotional seeing my husband get emotional because he's not emotional at all. And so that was really exciting. And even though I didn't get to hold him right away, they bring him over to you. So I got to look at him and learn his face. And it was really quite an experience. It was very happy, even, you know, considering the circumstances.
A little bit of joy in an otherwise kind of scary moment, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to, at the risk of making you uncomfortable, go back to when you said that you were a high-risk pregnancy. Is that something we can ask you about?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Why was that?
So I had, in the umbilical cord, normally there's 2 arteries. I only had 1 artery, and my placenta was acting up. It wasn't doing its job giving the baby the right nutrients, and I actually got gestational diabetes on top of all that.
Oh man. And that test is the
Yeah.
worst thing.
Oh, I know.
It's
I had to do it
awful.
twice. So
Oh,
it's a long
Oh,
one.
no.
You can't eat. Okay, you're pregnant and you have to drink that water, and it's bad.
I'm not so hot on the sweets, but I'm a bread girl. I love my bread. And so that was hard to give up, to kind of change my diet midway through, because that can actually start to calcify your placenta a little bit. So there was some calcification on there, and you know, he's measuring small. I actually barely even showed because he was so tiny, which I guess it could be hindsight 2020, you know, not to look too pregnant, but you know, I did want to make sure he was growing. And so those were most of the contributing factors to the high risk pregnancy.
So during this period in which you're carrying this special little life around with you, and you're going to the appointments and they're saying, well, we have some concerns, you know, don't want to get you too worried, but mom, we only see this and he's not developing at the rate we'd like. Or of course they're not telling you because you don't know that.
Yeah.
But the baby is not where we'd like to see. Is there worry in your mind in those moments? What's the feeling that you're going through as you're hearing this?
Definitely worry. Like you said, they're pretty candid. They're very professional about not making you freak out or not letting themselves show freak out, you know, on their face, which is helpful, especially being my first pregnancy and being older. You know, I wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we could. Also, I work at Costco, so I was on my feet about 50 hours a week. Not that I have to lift heavy, but you know, that was concerning. So they actually took me out of work about a month before I had to deliver, just to make sure I could take it easy. And you know, you want to make sure you're doing everything you can, but at a certain point, you're only able to do so much. And so it's kind of in the Lord's hands at that point, to make sure that everything turns out well. And so that was a little scary for me, kind of not being in control or not able to control the situation 100%. And I was going actually 2 to 3 times a week for checkups at TMC during my pregnancy, just to make sure that nothing alarming was happening every 2 days. So at any point they said I could go in for delivery. And one day I did.
Oh my gosh. I can't even handle myself looking at this little baby boy and his hands are like doing the infant thing.
He just roller coaster hands when he
Yes.
sleeps, just like that.
That's so cute.
Like his arms straight up in the air, that whole thing.
Yes.
And he'll start doing
Touchdown.
the fist thing. It's so cute. 6 weeks old. He's 6 weeks old?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. That is just so cute. How much does he weigh now?
He weighs probably close to 6 pounds. We actually have our checkup on Wednesday. But the last time we went to the doctor, he was about 5.5 pounds, which is amazing growth. And he's 18 inches long now, and almost busting out of his little preemie clothes.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
So he's racking up milestones as quickly as he can, right?
Yeah, and it's really cool because in the NICU they were giving him MCT oil and vitamins, and so that helps to kind of fatten him up and keep his immune system going. So we continued that actually coming home. We give him coconut oil 3 times a day for healthy fats, and the vitamins along with the Neo formula, which is packed full of good calories for him. And so we learned so much being in the NICU, honestly. Even just general care and questions, and the nurses there spent time with you if you wanted them to, or not if you wanted them to, and just awesome.
Yeah, they are angels right here on earth, aren't they? They're like,
gosh,
the best
100%. I actually took them 2 cakes and a thank you card on Saturday, just because I wanted them to know how much they meant to us. And when you go and visit your baby in the NICU for 8 hours a day, every day for 4 weeks, you really start to know people, and you get to learn their stories and about their families. And some of the nurses have had NICU babies as well. And so it was a pleasurable experience during a scary time for sure.
so now your baby's doing great, but throughout this 4 weeks of being in the NICU, were there any scary moments where you were concerned?
Yes, there were a couple times, because since he's so small, the veins that he had don't necessarily support the IVs that he needs. At one point they had an IV in his head, just because that's where the best vein was. So that was a little hard to see, because you're trying to hold him and comfort him, and he's got wires and everything sticking out, and IV in his head. And after that failed, they had to do what they call a PICC line, which is where they run a thin IV into his arm and through his chest close to his heart. And that was a little scary because they get really close to the heart, but not into the heart. But there's always chances for mishaps and things like that. So it can be kind of a dangerous procedure. And you have to sign the paperwork allowing them to do that, which of course you want to have them do everything possible. And so, they have you leave the room, and they do the procedure. And that was a little worrisome. That was probably the toughest part, because after that, the nurses actually have to do certain procedures before they can pick him up or feed him, as do we. We had to make sure we were extra washed. Everyone's already wearing a mask, but the nurses would have to change their gloves every time they touched him, just to ensure that there was no infection, because it can allow for infections easily, which is scary because it's also by his heart. So that was a bit of a moment of worry for me. And then they have the PICC line in for about 2 weeks, just because that's the best way to get the vitamins and stuff through the IV that he needs. So that was a little scary for sure.
Gosh, is that amazing and scary?
Yes.
And all that stuff. I mean,
everything at the same time, all these emotions, and, joy that you had your baby, worry that he could get sicker, or something could happen. So it was quite an experience for sure.
We're talking with Sarah Armbruster, who just brought her newborn baby Krew home from the hospital, like 2 weeks ago, Sarah?
Yes.
So he's in the NICU for 4 weeks because he was born prematurely. And they've taken all of these extraordinary measures, and your miracle baby, they hand over to you and say, okay, looks like he's good, Mom, Dad, you guys can take him home. Tell us about that feeling.
Okay. That's actually interesting, because, you're as you start to prepare to take him home, they kind of give you a heads up, like, okay, bring in your car seat, because they do a stress test on the baby, and if they don't like your car seat, they make you take another one. That's how good they are. So you know, you can tell you're starting to get close to going home. And one day we walked in and we were expecting to take him home a couple days after that Monday, and they're like, okay, well, you're going home today. And we're like, wait, what? I wasn't ready. You know, I thought I had like another 24 hours to prepare the nursery or make sure everything was washed. And all of a sudden they're like, okay, just hang tight. We're going to start getting the discharge paperwork going, and go ahead and call your pediatrician, which I'm thinking I don't have one yet. And it was quite interesting because, you know, he's hooked up to the monitors while he's in there, and so you can see his heart rate, you can see his breathing. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're not going to know if he's breathing anymore, we're not going to know if his heart is beating anymore, you know, silly things like that. And the doctors reassure you, oh, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. If you have questions, just call your pediatrician, but you'll be fine, no worries. And so a few hours later we were on our way home with our new baby.
There's no worse feeling than when they're like, okay, leave.
Yeah.
You're like, you're trusting us?
Yeah.
With a baby?
You know, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can babysit, but are you sure? I want to leave him, you know, almost, because they just can do everything. And, you know, even just feeding him, one of the times he kind of started to choke a little bit, which you just pat them on the back and everything's fine. But I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to know if he's choking. I'm not going to know all these things. And they're very reassuring, but they're pretty much like, okay, you got to go, because they have new babies coming in that need the room. And so once your baby's good to go, you're out of there, which is good.
Think about how much, you know, you have to let go of and allow nurses and doctors to take care of your baby. You have to have a little bit of faith and just, you know, give up
Sure.
any control. Like, you have none.
Yeah, it was very much a Jesus take the wheel moment for us. And that's where it really came at a great importance to get to know the nurses there day in and day out, because you don't always have the same nurse. They have like 100 different nurses that work in the NICU. And so you get a different one every 12 hours because that's their shift. And every single one of them was amazing. We didn't have one bad experience, you know. And the way they chart on your baby, you know, they chart everything. How much they went to the bathroom, how much they ate, when they ate, how much they're sleeping. And then they pass all that information along to the next shift every time. And so they just take the utmost care, and the doctors were so amazing. Even if the doctor wasn't working on Krew, if he walked by and saw us in there, he stopped and talked to us for 5 to 10 minutes, making sure that we didn't have questions, or if we did have questions, he was addressing them. And there's about 3 or 4 doctors that go through there, and we got to know every single one of them. They even made us a blanket.
Oh, that's awesome.
They made you a blanket?
Yes, they knitted us a blanket. They have a volunteer there.
Oh,
that I think she's knit about 200 blankets over the last 10 years or so. And they're the softest thing ever. And they present it to your baby, and then that kind of becomes their little comfort blanket. And so he loves it. We use it every day, and it immediately puts him at peace. And that was really amazing too, that they give you clothes, they give you hats, they give you blankets, whatever you need, they do it for you.
First time mom.
Yeah. Scary, but cool.
Yeah. Cool. Are you ready for number 2? Not yet.
Not yet. Give me about 12 months. But honestly, because of the C-section factor, it was a bit of a difficult C-section, and so I'll always have to deliver early. So my next baby is also going to be in the NICU.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. But I'm ready. I'm mentally ready. I know what the level of care is, and so I'm thinking good. Go ahead and get them started. I'll be back in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
playing the role of the interfering mother-in-law. Meredith is doing that this morning. Well, are you ready for your next child,
I
hon?
am. Saying do it right away. Do it right away. You gotta recover though. That's the thing.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
recovery is difficult. So
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Sarah, it's really good to meet both of you guys. I mean, if you were to meet somebody on the street who maybe doesn't hear this conversation, and just like in a sentence or two, you had to tell them if they were worried about going into the hospital, into the NICU, they were going to have a baby, what would you say to that person?
Well, I mean, it's always scary. You never want to have to recommend a NICU, but especially because I work at Costco, we support so much with CMN. And one of my coworkers, I call him my work husband, his wife is one of the NICU nurses.
Oh.
And just they treat you like family, and they make sure you have no worries, and they ask you how you're doing. They don't just ask you, oh, how is the baby, blah blah blah. No, they want to know how you're doing. How are you doing emotionally? How is mom and dad feeling today? Did you eat? Have you had water? They give you vouchers to go down to the cafeteria, because they say if you're feeding the baby with your breast milk, we're going to feed you. So not only are they caring for your baby, they're caring for your family. And it's so important and amazing what they do day in and day out with not even batting an eye.
Not just caring for the whole patient, but the whole family.
The
And
whole
they do
family.
and they do it without asking about your ability to pay. So many families worry about insurance and that sort of thing.
Yes.
At TMC, thanks to Children's Miracle Network hospitals, that's not the first item on the agenda list. They say, we'll take care of you no matter what your
No
situation.
matter what. Yeah. They even reassure you, oh, well, they even offer aftercare for all the preemie babies. They offer a developmental care for the first 3 years, which is free to you because of CMN. And so now I can have him checked about every 6 months or every 3 months for his developmental stage, to make sure he's going through all the proper check marks and milestones, and that's free of charge. It's amazing.
We're speaking to Sarah virtually this morning. We've got her and her family, baby Krew, on
Little Krew.
digitally, and yet every time it makes a little sound, I can almost smell him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Can't you, Mary?
Well, all I'm just thinking is I need a baby. I need to get pregnant. Wow. Look at that. Look at, he just did it again.
I'll tell you,
yeah.
what a special story, knowing that even when babies show up early and circumstances are less than perfect, miracles happen every day at TMC for Children with your help. Call the phone number right now and help out families like baby Krew, who had a team waiting and ready when he entered the world. 623-KIDS is the phone number to call, 623-5437. You'll make a difference in a little baby's life.
That's awesome.